Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in this video I'm going to be going over an all-rare Dragon 20 team that I think is the most optimized and most kind of realistic endgame viable team that is going to be all rares. I'm going to show you kind of the thought process into building it and how it performs and all of that, so let's get into it. Alrighty, and first of all, one thing I want to mention is down in the vid description, I will have an infographic here that kind of walks you through what the team is. You know me and my infographics. I threw this together. It shows the speeds and all of the gear currently being worn by the team and the total stats and all of that. So that's down in the vid description where you can see the average clear time and all of the gear and stats if you want to pull that up and take a look at it to be able to compare to what you're doing. So now let's go ahead and dive into this. So obviously, the reason for this video and the reason I've been kind of optimizing this team is, especially if Plarium is going to start doing more of these rare events, there's going to be a lot of incentive to really dive in and maximize some all rare teams, which is kind of cool in a way because then it gives more of a reason to really dive in and use some other champions that we maybe wouldn't typically use in the end game if they're going to do events like this, and gives me an opportunity to kind of show you a realistically acquirable team that you can put together without any epics or legendaries. This is a realistic team that a lot of you out there can achieve someday if you play the game long enough and kind of pull enough shards and all that, because there's no epics or legendaries obviously. So first I'll go ahead and just dive in and kind of show you the team here. Now, first thing I want to note before I dive into this real quickly, before I forget. Remember, when you're watching videos like this, if you're a brand new player, it's going to be hard to replicate the exact results. Remember, content providers and endgame players are going to have really good, great hauls, and you can see I am in gold 4, which means I get these 20% stat bonuses. People that are in platinum get even more stat bonuses, and typically, you're going to see here, if I pull up the gear again, you can see lots of epic and legendary 5 and 6 star gear. So don't feel bad if you can't replicate the exact results. If you're a new player, you're probably not going to be able to do Dragon 20 in 2 minutes with all rares. It's just, you got to develop your account more and get a better great haul and get better gear, and it's a work in progress. Don't feel bad if you can't do exactly what you see in this video. You can get to that point, and even if you can't do it in a minute 40, you might be able to do it in 3.5 minutes. You will get there if you just keep working. And as I pull up the dungeon here, this team is pretty well-rounded. It's got some void affinity, some magic, and some force in it. So the route I would go if you can't get to Dragon 20 is there's nothing wrong with getting to like stage 16 or 17. This team that I show here will be very strong in stages 16 or 17 because it's all void and magic and force. So you're gonna have the War Maiden struggle on spirit stages, and you're gonna have the Kale and Apothecary struggle on the force stages. Sorry, I was blanking there. But yeah, so it works great for stage 20 and great for stages 16 and 17. If you have to choose between those two, you might want to stay with stage 16 because it is 2 less energy, and I haven't ran a large enough sample size to know for sure if the 2 energy, if you get more 6 stars and 17 and whatnot. I've done most of my analysis on stage 20 because I know that's what most people are kind of running in the end game and are curious about when you really start to break down analytics. But that might be a fun study to do at some point and do a large sample size and kind of lay it out on a spreadsheet. But yeah, this is a team that you can definitely get to stage 16 or 17, and you can get good gear there. You don't have to do stage 20 to get good gear. You can see you can get 6-star gear all the way down at stage 13. Like, yes, it is definitely more optimal to do stage 20 because you're guaranteed a 5-star. I'm not going to lie and say it's not. But don't feel bad if you get to stage 14, 15, 16, whatever. This team can get you there, and it can perform well and give you a really good baseline to start progressing in the Dragon Dungeon, which is arguably the most important dungeon in the game. So now that we've got that out of the way, you can see the team here. We're going with the Apothecary aura. Defense is a very good aura. Usually defense, speed, and HP are the ones we're looking for in dungeons. And then we've got Kale is going to be a really good DPSer. He hits pretty hard. He places a lot of poisons, which are very good in the Dragon. And then we've got Bellower in a stun set, as you can see in the gear in the infographic. He's going to be helping me get through the waves. He's not going to be that great against the dragon itself, but he's going to be paramount in keeping your squishies alive during the waves. He's going to be hitting them with AoE, decrease attack, and also placing a bunch of stuns. That's why it's important to get good speed and accuracy on him. He doesn't need to be built for damage. He's kind of an AoE debuffer support. And then War Maiden is great for her 3-turn cooldown, AoE defense break, and also worth noting, I do have all these champions booked, and I will show you the masteries after I kind of show you the run and kind of explain it. Cold Heart is her Heartseeker is not going to reset the turn meter of the dragon. So if you're just using her for this scenario, you don't need to get a ton of accuracy on her. Obviously, it'd be great to get her in 200 accuracy, but if you can get her around 100, 120, it'll be good enough to reset the turn meter on some of the waves. Semi-reliable, and her Heartseeker won't reset the turn meter of the dragon anyway. It's just meant to hit hard, and that kind of walks you through the team. Let's fire up the run and go over it here. I expect this to take about a minute 45. I think in my sample sizes, if I pull up the infographic, yeah, average clear time, a minute 42. That was when I did like 25 runs and just took the average. It was a minute 42. But yeah, you can see the Apothecary can come in with the clutch heals and keep people alive. And the Bellower lands a bunch of debuffs, and him in the stun set, he is super good. He's one of the best rares in the game. If you can get him in a stun set, he's going to be super useful in basically any faction wars or CC wave scenario. So he can really help you keep glass cannons alive. And there you see the Cold Heart with the turn meter reset. And it's going pretty smoothly. Usually we get to the boss in about 1 minute. And then it takes anywhere from 40 to 50 seconds to burst down the dragon. There we go, and you can see the stuns there by the Bellower. The Hordens will hit pretty hard when you get to the later stages, so you got to be a little bit careful with them. They can really decimate your DPSers. And I do want to know, don't feel bad about building even your DPSers with a pretty good amount of HP. HP is really good in dungeons. You're going to want to get, when you get to the end game of like Dragon 20, you're going to want like 30, 35,000 HP. You don't really want to go super glass, because if they're dead, and they're not doing anything. You'd rather have them be alive doing some damage as opposed to being dead and doing nothing. So make sure you get them with at least a decent amount of toughness, usually about, 2,000 something defense and 30,000 something HP. Because a lot of the value for Cold Heart and KO, which are kind of the staple DPS of this team, is from Cold Heart's Heartseeker, which you don't even need a lot of attack for anyway, and KO's Poisons, which you don't need a lot of attack for anyway. So there we can see we're right on par around the minute 42 average mark for clear time. And now let's dive in to kind of the masteries and everything. But before I pull that up, I'll give you a chance to kind of see the numbers here live. You can see how Cold Heart and KO are really the carries. War Maiden is really good for the defense break, and she brings a decent amount of damage as well. But let's look at that. No need to go there. And all right, let's pop open these masteries here. So first, if we dive into the Bellower masteries, I've got him built pretty defensively, and the staple of his utility, I believe, is this tier 6 mastery, Fearsome Presence. This is so good with the stun set. The stun set's base effect is 18%. Getting an extra 5% on 18 is massive. If the percent was 80, going from 80 to 85 is nice, but it's not nearly as impactful or felt near as often as going from 18 to 23. So getting this in this type of Bellower stun setup is extremely good, and he gets that 5% buffed effect on all 3 of his abilities because they're all AoE. So Bellower with this mastery and the stun set is one of the best rares in the game in terms of helping you progress through dungeon waves. And I'll give you a chance to kind of look at this here, because I know I can't fit the masteries on the sheet. So there's that if you want to screenshot or pause or anything. And what's the next one we'll go over? Let's go over Cold Heart. Helm Smasher and Flawless Execution is always kind of the hot topic, and you get people on both sides. Helm Smasher, I think, is technically, like, over the course of 100 runs, will scale out to be better. I like the consistency of Flawless Execution, but you're not wrong to take Helm Smasher. You can hit super hard with the Heartseeker with it, and it scales very well up in the later stages of dungeons when champions have more HP, more defense. You're ignoring more defense, obviously. So Helm Smasher is great. I just like the consistency of knowing what I'm going to get out of my champions, so I go with Execution. But Helm Smasher is definitely a viable choice, and you can see the masteries here. I'll give you a chance to pause and look that over if you want. Now let's go over the other damage dealer, which is Kale. and go over the Masteries here. So, Kale is a little bit different. I went with War Master just to get a bunch of procs on the dragon, because in a run like this, I need him to do a lot of damage versus the dragon and really slay it. So I wanted to gear him with a little bit more toughness. Thus, he's not going to scale nearly as well as Cold Heart's Heartseeker. So I went with War Master on him just to get those procs against the boss. But if you've got him built for more damage, you can definitely go with Helm Smasher or Flawless Execution. I just like the War Master, and it also gives you the capability to use your Kale in the clan boss. And if you're a more early game to mid game player and you have a maxed out Kale that you've super invested in, you're probably going to want to use him in the clan boss as well. So this is a kind of good general utility setup for your Kale that would do just fine in the end game for these dragon runs. So I'll give this a couple seconds if you want to pause. All right, and then here we go. Let's dive into the Apothecary. So Apothecary, this is pretty standard. You could do the support a little bit different. He doesn't really get a whole lot out of the third mastery on this page, so I just went with that in case someone dies, but it's not a super big deal. Lasting Gifts is definitely paramount. You're going to want that on him, and you're going to want Giant Slayer to help him get a bunch of those procs against the boss. And similar to Kale, if you have an Apothecary you've maxed out and you're a more beginner to mid-game player, you're probably going to want to use your Apothecary in a clan boss scenario, at least until you get counterattack. So I'll give you a couple seconds to look that over and pause. All right, and lastly is the War Maiden. Now, I did build her pretty DPS heavy, so I went with Flawless Execution. You could make the argument, similar to Kale, that War Master would be a really good route. So really any of those bottom three would be just fine, going with War Master or Helm Smasher or Flawless Execution. And Hexer, very good on her to make sure we're placing those defense breaks as often as possible. And I will give you a couple seconds to look that over if you want to pause. So yeah, and as I kind of wrap up here, I'll pop that up again so you have something to look at while I'm talking. But I could probably build an all-rare team that goes a little bit faster. I could probably get my average clear time to like a minute 30, minute 32 if I wanted to use like double Cold Hard or you know, but I wanted to use 5 different champions to make it as realistic as possible. If it were some sort of competition for me to get the lowest possible time, there's probably some things I could do, but I wanted to make a realistic guide with 5 different champions that is, you know, especially if Plarium's going to be doing all rare events, it's kind of a double dipping content benefit in terms of providing content for beginner to mid game players to kind of have a team that they see that they know is viable in the end game if you get good enough gear and can at least get you to those later stages with all rares. And also for end game players that are wondering what's a really good all rare team for a dragon event, maybe if we have one in the future, then this video can hopefully be a resource for both of those kind of players. So remember, that will be down in the vid description and you can pop that up and take a look, and hopefully that helps you out. Definitely let me know what you think down in the comments. If you have rares that you've had good success with, you know, I always enjoy hearing your input and all of us kind of learning from each other. So yeah, anyway, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.